All right, Trails Collective community. Ian here with the Trails Collective live episode. This will originally be airing August 31st, 2022, and it should be available after the fact wherever you get your podcasts. I think that's still heading through to wherever you find your podcast. But thanks for being on here for anybody who are going to tune in live with us. If you are tuning in live, feel free to drop any questions or comments into the Trails Collective's YouTube or Facebook feeds. If you're not getting responses or getting patched through, maybe try either the other YouTube or Facebook. Occasionally there's glitches there, but I will try to patch it through. So I appreciate you all being on. So let's see kind of what's shaking out there in the world. This past weekend was quieter on the FKT front, at least here in the Northeast, which is usually what I'm looking at for FKTs. A bunch of world marks, a lot of world activity on there. I don't know whether it's just more users using fastestknowntimes.com or whether there's just an uptick there. But it seems to be quite a bit more activity worldwide as opposed to here domestically. Outside of the FKT front, there were a number of Northeast races that ran. There was and some of these I'm catching on Ultra Sign Up. If you're an RD out there and you're not using Ultra Sign Up, I don't always catch it. Occasionally a couple on Run Sign Up, but I don't know. I can only dig too deep there. But on the events that ran, there was the Jigger Johnson 50 mile and 100K in Waterville, New Hampshire. Kim and the SAS Squad crew put on the Backyard Squatch Ultra, last person standing in Branchville, New Jersey. In New York, there was the Green Lakes Endurance Runs just a bit north of me in Fayetteville, outside of Syracuse. And in PA, Baker Ultra Challenge South in Smicksburg and the Heiner Half in North Bend. I saw some friends posting on the Heiner Half. It's just a really coming out of really great Pennsylvania trail scene there. Probably some of the larger attendance for sure in the region events. They've really grown that scene to be really large and really just a wonderful trail scene. I think really pulls together a good amount of individuals in their local communities and gets various organizations and clubs and whatever out there to support them. So it's pretty cool to see. And some of the friends just posted on the Heiner Half being one of their favorite events. And it looks like they had a great day for it. Let's see. In media, it seemed like a lot of the media was UTMB focused, and for, I guess, better or worse. I mean, it's I guess to be expected, and we'll get into that even here on the media here in our episode. We will close out with a segment on UTMB and bring in some of the voices, and maybe we can talk about a bit of the media that goes into that and how much it's growing in all regards. But a good amount of media out there. Chatter was on UTMB. Cultra just put out their past week's episode. I think this past weekend interviewed somebody on Eastern States. I didn't get a chance to listen to the episode, but just based on the description, it looks like it's probably a good episode on Eastern States and keeping it here local. And then there's things also. I also try to give you the heads up when there's event registrations about to open, as well as some that are about to cap out, as some races do cap pretty quickly. But at the moment, things are pretty quiet on the registration front. I think a lot of us are getting through our big events and just decompressing a bit after the event season. And so there's not a whole lot of activity at the moment. I did just get Breakneck Point set up for registration to go live tomorrow, September 1st. We're taking it back to a one-day event this year. So let's see, I think I set my cap to 440. We won't sell out immediately, but it will cap out. So if there's any of you out there interested in joining us at Breakneck Point this year, race date, we are shifting back a week to May 6th. For better or worse, dropping it on the same date as Spartan just dropped in on Harriman scene. So for those of you who thought maybe you're going to do both, sorry about that. But our date will be Saturday, May 6th this year. So for sure, get on that if you think you're going to join us. And that's for the Breakneck Half and Full. Let's see what else. On my end, this past weekend was occupied by making a trip over to do the New England Green River Marathon. I've really not had any interest in road historically, or participating in road races. But something I think finally piqued my interest a year or two ago, and seeing some friends posting their Boston marathon experiences, and well, I'm not getting any older and less, or younger rather, and any less broken. So I thought, well, maybe I should just experience Boston, I guess, while I still have the opportunity. So that was really the intent. So a few friends and I went out and ran the New England Green River Marathon. It was one that seemed to be one of the most non-roadish Boston qualifiers that I could find. It starts in Vermont, in Marlborough, Vermont. It was good to see Amy Rozecki working part of the registration or check-in, as well as Dan Grip was playing music out there post-race. So it's good to see some trail faces out there. But starts around Marlborough, Vermont, and then finishes in Greenville, Massachusetts. And I think we hit the border there between the two, literally right around the half marathon mark. So it was kind of cool. Really pretty course, well done event. They keep it capped out at 550. So it feels like still a pretty small personal event. It's a point to point, so you get bussed out to the start. And it is a mixture of quieter country paved roads along the Green River, and then just dirt and gravel roads mixed in as well. It has a net descent of, I think, 1,500 feet, I think, net. I think the total elevation loss point to point is like 2,000 feet. And I think we gained maybe 500 or 600 feet en route as well. I hadn't had a chance to run much this year. I didn't really run at all, or maybe like once a week or something like that between April and mid-July. So I was feeling every bit of that descent and the distance, and it just crushed my legs. It was, I was in the pain cave for quite some time, but a really well done event. So if anybody's looking for a roadish marathon, Boston qualifier, check out the New England Green River Marathon. It was a pretty cool experience. And congrats to some friends who were out there as well. Several friends that ran PRs. So I think it could be a pretty quick course as well. So all in all, a good experience. So what are we going to get into this round of Trails Collective Live? We are going to start here in just a minute with Twisted Branch. We will have RD Scott Magee, as well as Jamal Diboun and Ali Cooper on. And we'll just dig in a bit to Twisted Branch. Somewhere around 7:30, give or take, we'll shift into the Mozo Double Up. Used to be, I think, the Mount Mansfield Double Up, if I remember, was the initial name. And we will have on Nigel Bates and Emily Stitt. I think, if I remember right, Emily was women's winner. Nigel was second in the field, but pretty phenomenal run for both of them. And then somewhere around 8 o'clock, we will get into UTMB. And as long as they can all make it on, we'll have Zach Miller, Gabe Matyiko, and then on the CCC version, herein from Britta Clark as well. All pretty awesome athletes, and it'll be great to catch up with them. So for those of you tuning in, again, feel free to drop any questions or comments into the YouTube or Facebook pages for Trails Collective, and I'll weave them in where we get pauses in the action here. All right, so let's get into it. I am going to bring through Scott and Ali and Jamal. Good to see you all. Thanks for all making yourselves available pretty last minute and for taking some time out of your evenings this evening.
Thanks for having us, Ian.
Totally.
Hey, Ian. What's going on? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
All right.
Yeah. So I'm glad you guys signed on a little bit early so we could I could figure some of that out. And Ali, I've not met you before, but it's nice to meet you digitally here.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you.
Yeah. And then, all right, so some introductions, I guess, a little bit. So Twisted Branch is a beautiful point-to-point 100K running out of Naples, New York. It uses a good chunk of Finger Lakes Trail. RD Scott Magee came on hot and creating an event with awesome attention to detail. And got a payoff boost years ago and getting it on the list as a Western States 100 qualifier as well. And it's just been running from there. Ali Cooper is coming to us from Martinez, Georgia. Is that right?
Yeah, Martinez. We say
Martinez.
It wrong,
Martinez. And hopefully feeling pretty good after a solid run and second place finish on the day. And doing a brief Facebook stalk. Ali, it looks like you've done some East Coast local events, but also not hesitated in heading for destination races, including Whistler, Alpine Meadows, Quad Rock in Colorado, and Three Sisters Skyline in Oregon. And now adding Twisted Branch to that docket. And Ali is often near or on the podium with a few wins along the way. So, Ali, good to have you in the mix. And then...
sorry,
Not at all.
Come on.
Yeah. He's got good.
Blue, come here.
That's all right.
He had to make his appearance.
That's all good. Yeah, he can be right up there and in the mix. And Jamal Diboun is coming to us from Van Etten, New York, just a bit south of Ithaca. Diboun may be a familiar name to some of you in the form of Jamal's brother Yassine, but don't worry, we're not going to make the episode about him, buddy. Jamal's been diving into trail community over the past few years, I think more intently, and despite a bit of hits to the body, I think the miles and experience are really, finally paying off. He's having a great year with solid efforts at Cayuga Trails 50K in June, brushed the podium at Finger Lakes 50 Mile in July, and just took an hour off his prior Twisted Branch best to finish on the podium in third at Twisted Branch. So all solid events. So with all that said, Scott, I gave the gist of Twisted Branch, but I don't know maybe we've had a voice or two on the past couple of years from Twisted Branch, but out of your mouth proper, what was the original inspiration and intent for Twisted Branch?
So growing up in the area, knowing that trail was there, and it was a trail that I'd spent, a big part of my childhood on, and it was somebody giving me the Finger Lakes Trails map. They used to actually just have it on this one really cool, map. I realized the whole thing was connected, and I could go up and down that thing. So we started end-to-end hiking, and somewhere along the lines there, the trail kind of came in disrepair. And so when I actually tried to end-to-end run it with the idea of running an ultra, it was that actually really motivated me, that the trail really needed a showcase. It really needed attention. And it's a 65-year-old trail that some guy named Wally Wood had a vision, and that's how the Finger Lakes Trails started. And I felt like this was a race and an event that could help kind of provide that longevity, or, help enable that longevity that I think that the FLT stands for. And, as somebody that grew up in New York, I don't know, just out of love of the trail, just wanted to see it continue. So I had no idea what I was getting into. I'm not a race director, barely an ultra runner. I think I ran Virgil Crest, as my first ultra ever. So it was really just finding my own way, but, kind of keeping that passion as my guide.
And you for sure, you say, not a race director, but how many years is this? 8 years in? How many Twisted Branches is this at this point?
So I consider 8 because canceling in 2020 was a brand new experience for me. That was a lot of work, and almost as much work because we got really close to almost running it before we ended up pulling the plug. So 7 runnings in total.
Yeah. So at this point, you're quite the experienced kind of race director in that regard. And
yeah, and I think for me, it's we were almost on muscle memory in 2019, and then canceling 2020 and all the changes we made in 2021, it was almost a huge learning curve to kind of go back through and sort of relearn how to launch this event post-COVID. So yeah, definitely a lot of experience under our belt for me and my team and most of our volunteers that come back every year.
And so 8 years in, with this being your baby, how's it feel? Are you happy kind of how your kid's turning out here?
Yeah. So I would say that this was the most repeatable version of Twisted Branch ever. Like I felt personally how what the product was, the course, the conditions, the course marking. I thought everything went about as smooth as it's ever gone. And, my gauge on that is my energy level and my sort of how do I feel throughout the whole race. And I just felt great all day. And as post race then comes in, and not having the energy for that is, what I abhor. I hate running out of energy then. So, no, this was, I think, probably one of our best executed years.
Well, I appreciate you just talking about that post race in that window and knowing what that's like. So the fact that you did turn out to, help in those critical post race doldrums or whatever, where you're just cooked for me after Cayuga, I really appreciate it. And if I'd stopped scheduling my vacation right on top of Twisted Branch, I definitely owe you some hours there. So, and then Allie, why Twisted Branch? You got some roots here? Is it a Western qualifier? What are you doing here? What's your deal?
I just went on a list of Western States qualifiers, and I was scrolling, and this one sounded really cool. And I love picking destination races somewhere I've never been. And I've never been anywhere in New York but New York City. So I thought this would be a cool place to check out. And I roped some friends into coming with me. So.
Oh, nice. Did they have good days as well? Or was it a pretty cool experience?
Yeah, they both finished their first 100K. So they had great days.
Right on. That's awesome. Yeah, and with that, I know that Western States, I think board just announced, I think the 2024 at least lineup or whatever. You got World's End, you got Twisted Branch. Is there one closer to you? Is there still one in Georgia that's on the list? And Hellgate?
Yeah.
What else is East Coast?
There's Georgia Death Race. There's Georgia Death Race here. Yeah. I'm already signed up for my one next year too.
What's the one next year? What are you signed up for?
Bandera.
Oh yeah, cool. And then Georgia Death Race. Scott, you've done Georgia Death Race, or you did the other one that I always confuse Georgia Death Race with?
No, I did Georgia Death Race in 2018. So it's been a few years.
Right on. So you picked a burly one, saying you hadn't had necessarily the background, and maybe Virgil was your first, but you didn't pick an easy one with the Death Race, and you finished.
No, I had a good finish. I had a really good day out there. I tried to take advice of people that I knew that had run it, and took the front half extremely easy, and we picked up a lot of places along the way on the back half. So I had probably my best day of running that day.
Yeah. And Jamal, in your relative backyard, this was your second Twisted Branch. Is that right?
Yeah. I did it last year, first time.
And last year was pretty good too, right? I mean, you felt pretty good about last year's effort, and this is just better.
Yeah, last year was my first 100K ever, anything longer than 50K actually. And I just went out last year, just tried to, with the mindset that I just wanted to finish and feel okay during the race. And I ended up feeling good and having a pretty good race. But this year I felt like I ran the course already, and, I had a little bit more strategy in the back of my mind throughout the day. So it seemed to pay off.
Yep. And in terms of our strategy or paying off or racing wise, how about for you, Allie? Were you in, I don't know how it shook out race wise. Were you and Amelia close throughout the day, or was there separation there? Was there any jockeying for the pole?
I wish we'd been closer. I have never done 100K. Like, I've done a 100-miler, I've done a 50-miler, but I wasn't sure how to pace 100K, and every course was different anyway. Mm-hmm. So I started out really slow because my goal was to not blow up. So I was like, I wanted to make it on the podium, but I didn't really know. So I was like, I'm just going to start out slow and we'll see what happens. And it turns out I started out too slow because I had so much gas left in the tank when I finished. It was actually...
And by slow, she means she started out in 5th place.
Yeah.
So
really sandbagging.
But,
really.
Right. Lazy.
But yeah, so it was fun because I passed people all day, but I never saw Amelia because I think she started out slower too, but she was like steadily like 20 minutes ahead of me like most of the day. So
yeah, she was chasing Sarah most of the day up until about halfway through the Bud Valley area.
Yeah.
And that's where you could see you really started to pour it on, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, I think that's when I realized that I had a lot of legs left and not as many miles, so I better crank it up.
So some combination then there of all right, yeah, we could have maybe run that harder as 100K, or is it just like, wow, I'm actually maybe 100 mile is my thing, and like I was just getting started with 100K and I just needed to keep going? I
think I definitely could have run that harder, and I'd love to try again and put a better effort out there, but I don't know about the 100-miler. My last 100-miler did not go well. I finished, but it was 29 hours and it was a real sufferfest. So
as they can be, but look at you now. You're that much wiser, and you just drilled a 100K. The day for you, Jamal. You guys somewhat separated. I saw I'm forgetting his name in the moment. We had him on an episode earlier in the year. Who was who took it out? Who was the leader of 15? What, I forget it. Parker?
Yeah. Parker. Yep.
Yeah. And I think just coming off of being sick or COVID or something like that, maybe a system or.
Yeah, he had some respiratory chest. He actually pulled his plug. He came into the 5th aid station. I actually met him out on the road because I had heard reports, and he was walking it in. He's playing it safe, had been sick and had been racing his tail off all year. So he was definitely putting some pretty crazy times in our first few aid stations.
Yeah. So. And then Jamal, for you, were you aware of where you were all day? Were you, I'm sure just kind of I was about to say just kind of doing your own thing, but you mentioned like strategy. So at some level you were looking forward to also the competition and not necessarily just I don't know. I mean, how'd it go for you? Or how was the competition angle?
Yeah. It was good. I started off quicker. I felt like it was cool in the morning, and I started about 15 people back, I know, at the start. And usually for these races, I don't really know what place I'm in until somebody tells me. And I think it was maybe 20 miles in or something. My wife told me at an aid station, you guys are 6, 7, 8. There was a group of 3 of us, I think, at the time. And I was pretty surprised that I was that high. And we kind of leapfrogged each other throughout the afternoon, me and these few other people. And I just stayed with it. I had a little bit of a low point when it got really hot, but I feel like I adjusted really well with my hydration and the way I was cooling down, and what I did at each aid station, and I kind of rebounded, and I ended up pushing through and finishing at the at the front of the pack of all those people I was running with, and just kept catching people as the day went on, and was just behind third place coming into that last climb after Urbana. And I had a good buddy of mine, my brother-in-law that lives up here in Van Etten with me. He paced me for the last section, and gave me some motivation, and we caught the place guy on the climb, and I felt like I had a lot left at the end, so I was super happy about it.
Yeah, I think with both of these guys, both Ali and Jamal, so that last hill that you're referring to, Mount Washington, I get a lot of curse words at the end of the race about that. And both of these guys absolutely come off that hill smiling and skipping into the finish line. So Jamal, you picked up second place on that last climb, which is pretty unheard of. So to have legs there is pretty cool. And then Ali, I think you put down something like, for women, I think like the 6th best time in that final leg. So that it's just crazy times for that late in the race. So I like what you said, Ian. Just why all the legs left,
Yeah, which you're growing into this ultra thing, Ali, in your old age here. So what's how about where are you coming from, Martinez? Is it a hillier part of Georgia? You got a good amount of technical trails, or was this how'd this fare compared to kind of your backyard, so to speak? Good call with the GIF.
Definitely.
The dog's going to be stoked.
Oh my gosh. He's being ridiculous. I literally am holding this jar of peanut butter so he will stop barking at me. Anyway.
Yeah.
I live in a fairly flat area. Like the most gain I can get is like maybe a little less than 100 feet per mile. But usually I run around the lake we have here so that my dog can come with me. And that has no climbing. So a lot of my training runs were pretty flat, but my mom lives in the mountains a couple hours away. So I went up there a few times just to get like a lot of vert so that I would still have legs at the end of the race. So I guess that worked for me.
Looks like you're right. It looks like that paid off a bit. It's still interesting to see some of, I guess at some level, once you have the muscle memory and the fitness returns fairly quick, or how to pace things, some level you can, I guess, really vary the training and still have really solid performances. But I don't know, it's just interesting to see some of that pay out. So maybe even, so maybe there's destinations to your mom's really played out, or maybe you're just whatever, you're tough, man. Like you're good. Like you can do local trails and it'll shake out. And Scott, you've got it's a decent amount of climb, right? But I mean, it's nothing crazy, right? It's kind of par for a hilly course. What is it, like 15,000 feet or something like that of gain?
Oh, no, it's not even. I think we're under 11 in gain and just over 11 in drops. So technically it's a downhill course. But I think with the Twisted Branch, our elevation is earned. Like it's just, as you know, Ian, right? This area is just this is not an easy course from that perspective. It's a very rooty, rocky, difficult, technical, and varied, So the climb I don't think the climb is the story. I think actually a lot of people finish the race with their quads blown up from the downs more than suffering from the ups. So if you can climb, you'll do well.
And a really different experience for you, Emily, too, or Ali, rather. I'm looking at Emily at the bottom. Thanks for being on there as well. Ali, different experience for you from some of those that you've also sought out in some of your destination races, though, right? I mean, Sister Skyline, Whistler. I mean, you go on some pretty big mountain courses with these kind of sweeping mountain vistas, and now suddenly you're in upstate New York, where maybe you get an occasional like overlook, but you're on these kind of like tight, constantly undulating trails. I mean, a much different experience than your prior destination races.
Yeah, I mean, I told Scott that I think it's the most beautiful course I've ever run. Like even those destinations out west, I don't know. I thought upstate New York was so beautiful. There was vineyards everywhere and the flowers, and it probably helped that I didn't really have a low all day, so I felt good while I was looking at all those views. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was gorgeous.
That should be a quote for the race right there in terms of a slogan. Should be Allie, and then you got to put her prior races underneath.
Right, prettier than these races.
More beautiful than Whistler Blackcomb. That's right.
To be fair, Whistler was covered in clouds all day, so I didn't get to see anything. But
and then Jamal, there's a huge. I mean, in terms of just how positive your year's going so far and how your body's responding, and you don't necessarily have to like dig into it, but in terms of some of whatever physiologic stuff you've had going on the past couple of years, which probably made you, I don't know, kind of in a down spot in that way, or questioning kind of the running future or whatever. And suddenly like things are just coming together and like paying off for kind of doing the work.
Yeah. I just have been running, started out just trying to, have a nice evening out or just stay in shape and take care of myself, and just kept progressing. My fitness has just kept progressing to the point where I'm out doing some of my training runs, and I felt like, shit, I got to enter a race here because I'm feeling really good. My fitness feels really good, and it seems to be helping me. It's a fine line, between not overdoing it and some of the long runs or some of the long races, but I feel like it does a lot of good for me, for my health, and yeah, like I said, it's definitely serving my soul, which I think is serving my overall health. So I didn't think I was going to run too much this year, but
it's been an awesome year.
I'm just going with the flow, kind of, even with each race, like Twisted Branch, I didn't know. Same with Finger Lakes 50s. I didn't know how I would feel. I figured I would just kind of go with the flow during the race, and I feel great. So fitness is there.
And so now that you hooked in on the main line on the juice here, are you what do you got the rest of the year? You didn't pull the plug on the 100, right? You did not register, or you did?
It's still.
Are you thinking about it?
It's hard not to. I still look at it. Right now I'm planning on going out and pacing Yassine and crewing for him. At the very least, I'm going to do maybe the last 40 miles with them out in Arizona for the Magee on Monster 100. So I think I'm pretty set on that. Got a pretty busy fall with some other work things, and
now I'm just hearing excuses. Come on, dude. The fitness is there. The horns is there. You might as well,
I know.
You can probably twist Allie's arm into going out because clearly she's got some left in the tank there. And you guys can both toe the line there and just hammer it.
I would love to. I'm willing. I'm open and willing to be talked into it. But it's going to take some convincing.
And Allie, what do you got on deck? What I can't remember if I saw anything in your ultra sign up profile. You sign up for anything else this year, or was that mute?
Sorry, I'm not sure. I know I'm going to jump into like our local 50K, just that we have here in Augusta, Fats 50K, and that's in like early October. And I'll probably try to find at least one other 50K this fall, so that I'll be ready for Bandera at the beginning of the year.
Yep. And how about on your bucket list? Since you're clearly looking around at destination races, what's the short list for what you're going to pick off at some point?
I mean, I'd love to run at Western States.
Mm-hmm.
But also like Cascade Crest is a 100-miler that I've always looked at. I'm really interested in that one.
Why Cascade Crest?
I just think the Cascades are such a beautiful area, and I've just heard a lot of stories from that race, and it just sounds like an epic, really hard race. It would be a really good challenge. Cool.
I think that was one of my earlier ultra experiences was pacing a friend out at Cascade Crest. I used to live in Washington, and I lived in Bend, Oregon for a while, so it was cool seeing your Three Sisters skyline on there as well.
Yeah, that was fun.
But Cascade Crest, I feel like, is one of those originals that isn't. I think, the scene has grown up so much around it that sometimes I think falls to the wayside. But it is such a pretty event. I don't think it gets some of the press that it's just kind of got eaten up a bit there. But definitely a cool race, and it's cool that it's with an up and coming individual like yourself. Of all the races that you're scouting out, that you found Cascade Crest. So hopefully it happens and you have good experience. And then Scott, what do you got on deck? Frozen Branch does not. Is that not happening? Is that happening?
It'll be happening this year. You'll just have to keep an eye on it. That's always a little bit of a seat of our pants kind of a race, which we love as an organization, just because Twisted is so overly planned. And so we'll probably run a different 50K Frozen Branch this year. So expect the chili and the cold and the snow, but we're, I think, looking at a different section of the course this year just to switch things up.
Cool. And then I know new business is probably pretty consuming on your end, hopefully going well, but are you getting in any on your own or running or events?
So I've started training. I am looking for an ultra next year right now. There's been some discussions in the 70 to 100 mile range, but nothing's picked out yet. No plans. Yep. I got some work to put in.
Yeah. Well, I think that Jamal and Allie both have a 100-miler in Arizona coming up. So in case you kind of went in on that, or I think they need crews at this point because it's still pretty fresh. You guys can probably figure that out.
Let's do it, Scott.
I'm there.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Scott, congrats on continuing to put on a top-notch event. Allie, I'm glad that you made the trip up and it was a really good experience. Jamal, it's continues to be really awesome to see you continuing to grow in, and hopefully out of your brother's not shadow, that's not the right word, but I don't know, dude, maybe you're gonna take the young gun out here at some point and take over the Diboun mantle.
I'm climbing. I'm coming for him.
You are climbing. He's only getting older and slower, and you're climbing. You're gonna meet in the middle somewhere.
Yep. We'll do it together. We'll probably do something together someday. I hope.
You probably will, and then hopefully you'll kind of maybe just get one step ahead of him before the finish.
Yeah, hopefully. Push him down, trip him up, put something in his bottle. Yeah.
Right on. Well, anything else that would be fun to talk about on Twisted Branch for any of you guys before I transition here? Yeah.
I'm good, Ian. I appreciate you having us on.
Totally. Yeah, I appreciate you guys all taking your time out.
Yes.
And Allie, I'll try to twist your arm into coming north again back to New York for maybe one of my own races as well.
I do have some friends in like the Pennsylvania area, so I'm sure they could convince me to come up y'all's way.
Yeah, there are plenty of pretty cool events in PA worth probably scoping out, but maybe we'll cross paths out there. All right. Well, cool. Well, thanks so much, everybody. I really, again, appreciate your time, and congrats again, Scott, on a great event, and Jamal and Allie, congrats on really great races.
Yeah, congrats, guys. Thank you, Ian.
All right.
Thank you, Ian. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. All right. See ya.
Bye.
Ciao.
All right. So we are going to switch gears here event-wise. And Jonathan Smith, I meant to plug this in when we were talking about it, and I missed the moment. Just said Allie set the Strava segment crown for Bud to finish. So it was cool. Thanks for plugging that in with some of the data. And again, nice work, Allie, on a pretty phenomenal race there. All right. We are going to switch gears event-wise. I'm going to weave in Nigel and Emily into the mix. Good to at least digitally meet you, Emily. I'm not sure whether we met or connected at Whiteface, but if not, good to connect here, maybe.
Yeah.
And Nigel, nice to meet you at least here digitally. I don't think necessarily we have cross paths, but we are going to switch to the Mozo Double Up, and Will had a conflict going on, so he can't join us here this evening. But for those not familiar with the Mozo Double Up, it's formerly, if I'm remembering right, it's Mansfield Double Up. Do one of you guys know that? Is that what it was?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. It was one that I think hit my radar ahead of their first year. I think when they first put out, like, we're putting on this race next year or whatever, it's going to have a pretty low cap. And I just thought it sounded awesome. And it looked beautiful. And the digital stuff they put out, at least initially, with, I think, somebody running along the ridge there, it was just like, wow, that just looks spectacular. And so I was supposed to be in the mix, I I don't know, a year or two ago, I think when it got, I think maybe it got COVID, and then I think it was a rain. Did it get rained out last year? I think the original date maybe.
It got doubly rained out last year, unfortunately. Even the rain date was not a go. Just the terrain is so challenging that even slippery rocks are a death trap at that point.
And were you in the mix as well, Nigel, last year, or did you run last year?
Yeah, I was planning to run last year, and after the cancellation, just deferred it to this year.
Yep. Were you as well, Emily? Did you also roll over?
Last year, no. I had a couple of injuries that would have made it pretty unsafe for me to run. But I mean, in my heart, I wanted to, but I couldn't.
Fair.
So part of me was happy it got canceled because I was like, I didn't miss it.
Yep. So myself and a couple of friends, we still had a place Airbnb for that weekend. So we still went up and did the course anyway on the original date. I think it was literally the race day. And I think it ended up, if I remember right, because I think we were the same day, it was just like wicked hot. And so if you count just the amount of sweat, I think kind of rolling off of us, I think it maybe could have considered a rain delay there. But I think if I remember right, whatever kind of held off, maybe it was like thunderstorms that were maybe projected to come in or something like that. But it was really cool to get up on the course, and it just kind of lived up. So for those not, again, familiar with Mozo, it's an 11-mile northeast gem. It ascends 5,000 feet, running up and around Mount Mansfield in Stowe, Vermont. Runs through some lush technical single track and forest, traverses a bit of beautiful and exposed ridgeline, and tosses in some pretty awesome ascents and descents. And then with us here to weigh in is Nigel Bates. Nigel coming to us from Waterbury Center. Is that right? And are you a Nordic individual? It seems like that's just like a Nordic hotspot.
I am trying to become one, but no, I'm more of a transplant.
Well, it seems like it'd be tough to live in Waterbury Center and not take on some Nordic, especially with the...
certainly hard to run all through the winter to at least a reasonable extent. So yeah, gotta strap the skis on sometimes at least.
Yep. And you're a Williams grad? That I maybe caught some photos there.
Correct. Yeah, from 2017. Go Eefs.
Yeah, and a solid running program. So no doubt you came out with some solid running fitness and kept it going. Nigel's been picking off some FKT routes in New England the past couple of years, including the self-supported Vermont 4,000 footers effort, 9 hours 25 minutes, as well as a handful of Northeast events, including Blood Route, Batona, and most recently Mozo Double Up. The one we're talking about here, obviously, and then Kilkenny Ridge race on deck. And looking at that, Batona, what are you doing with Batona? That seems like a real outlier.
Yeah, that was very different from what I'm used to. Mostly it's that my mom lives in New Jersey, and it was a good chance to visit that as well as tie a race into it. But the worst part about Batona was it's pancake flat, and you have to run the entire time. And if you decide to walk, it's because you're tired. It's not because there's a hill or anything. Combine that with just soul-sucking sand. It was quite a challenge, but beautiful course, though. The Pine Barrens of New Jersey are a really, really underappreciated place, I think. Totally incredible. But just it just seemed to be the outlier on somebody with the mountain shop, so to speak, that you're amassing here. But cool. And then Emily coming to us from Jericho. Is that right?
Yeah, originally, yeah.
Originally. Where are you now?
Right now I'm in White River Junction, Vermont, but I live in Burlington for the most part.
Oh, right on. Okay. And only a few years of results that I was seeing, at least in the ultra sign up, but included some Northeast steep events with Loon, Whiteface, and now here Mozo. So within, I guess, Burlington now, are you academic related or what are you doing?
So I'm a medical student at Dartmouth, actually, which is why I'm in White River at the moment. But the schedule that they have is kind of sends you all over the place. So I base myself out of Burlington for the most part.
Yep. How far into med school are you? Where are you?
I'm in my third year. So I'll sort of halfway through third year. So I spend a lot of time in the hospital. Yeah.
So kudos to you, to that grand juggle as well. And so the mountain efforts here, a good way to, just get away from it for just a bit.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I raced like Nordic skiing for a long time, pretty competitively. So mountain running is kind of always something that was part of my training, and I really enjoy. And especially with kind of, I think, the time constraints of school, training for running's a little like just pure hours wise. It's less time than skiing, so it's been kind of fun to focus a little bit on that this summer, and a couple other ones. So yeah.
Yeah. And so you still, did you kind of have to cut the tie then time wise on Nordic, or are you still doing Nordic in the winters as well?
I ski all the time in the winter
Yeah.
as much as I can. And I mostly will do like marathon races, like, and for now local ones. So like Craftsbury Marathon, I've gone up to Canada to do the Gatineau Loppet and a few others. I've done the Norwegian Birkie a few times because I was living abroad for a while, which are a ton of fun.
Yep. And then in some of these mountain races, I don't remember who was in the field at Loon. I think there were a couple, but at least in Whiteface, you had in that top 10, there were maybe 3 of you that were all Nordic athletes then, if not 4.
Yeah, I think so. Because Caitlin Patterson is a former Olympian, Sophia Laukli. I think Nina Armstrong was a former Nordic skier too. Like there could be others, and I don't remember.
Yeah.
And that's true of Loon too. There were quite a few Nordic athletes.
And then, so how did shake out? I mean, for both of you, Mozo is pretty close to home, so it's probably pretty quickly on the radar, and you kind of know the terrain, you know what to expect, knew what you were getting into. How was the whole experience for each of you?
I can go first.
Yeah.
So this is my second time running Mozo. I ran it in 2019. And yeah, for me, I mean, growing up in Jericho, especially the Underhill side of the mountain, is literally home. Like was where I would go for like long mountain runs and stuff. And especially if it was raining for whatever reason, I was like, I'm going to go run in the mountains when it's raining. So
the whole concept of this rain date then pushing back, you're like, man, why are you so soft? I did this when I was like 10 and it was good. We were fine.
I think it's a responsible choice by the organizers, just because you do go over some fragile alpine terrain, and, hiking versus, I think when you're racing, you may not be as good about picking you should in theory be good about picking your footwork, but I understand why they don't want to send as many people up there. But yeah, so as soon as I heard about the race, I was like, I have to go run this. And it was a blast in 2019. And I was really excited to run it again. It's such a unique course, I think, and really technical in a fun way. And I still get lost somehow. So yeah, it's a blast.
Technical, except for that stretch where they drop you off of the ridge into that god awful, just below the ridge, like what?
Subway Canyon.
Yeah, all right, it's kind of cool, but it's like
the best part.
Oh gosh, no, it's awful. I just felt like I was getting jabbed in the arm with any type of whatever, but it was pretty cool. But it goes from like, wow, this is like really runnable and fast, to like, whoa, what is this? Like this is not runnable and fast at all, even though it's kind of cool. But then that can segue into your experience, Nigel.
Yeah, that's the part I loved the most, and I was very pleased to hear from David Sinclair afterwards that it was the most technical race he'd ever run, because those trails feel like home to me too. I work for the Green Mountain Club, which maintains the Long Trail and all the trails on Mansfield, and in 2019, I was actually a caretaker living on Mount Mansfield, so I did those trails every day during work and after work, and got to the point that I felt like I knew every footstep on every trail, which was a really incredible feeling. I was noticing as I was training for this race that I wasn't quite there anymore. There were parts I didn't remember quite as well, but it did feel really good to be going through the canyons and just knowing I was making up time, because I just knew where the trail went next and knew how to get up the weird scrambly bit because I'd done it 100 times before. So yeah, even though I didn't end up being able to beat David's foot speed down the work road at the end. It was certainly a fun experience, feeling like I was racing in the backyard.
And is that how it shook out? Were you guys close through most of the day and it just came down to that final descent?
We actually were not that close at the beginning. I was very intentionally trying to let him go on the climb at the beginning and then just be close enough going into the canyons that I could make up a bunch of time there. It played out pretty well through that point. When I got out of the canyons, I heard a cheer go up for him nearby and thought, wow, I'm actually really close now, and turned on the jets and went for it. And my legs just kind of gave out on that last descent. So I more or less staggered home while he ran 4:15 pace down the road, and he ended up beating me by quite a lot, but it was a good competition, I thought. And also a fun competition with Lance Parker, who was in third place, who also knows these trails really well and had a spectacular day out there too.
Is Lance
he was watching me all the way up the exposed terrain on Sunset Ridge.
Does Lance have a Nordic background?
What's that?
Does Lance Nordic background of Lance? No,
I don't believe so.
I think he's pretty active.
He's training for an Ironman, so he had to do like a 4-hour bike ride that same afternoon. It was wild.
Yeah, I was surprised to see Sinclair in that mix as well. In terms of just such a small race. Again, I such a beautiful course and such a cool course in terms of technicality and where it puts you. So I could, I'm not surprised in that I'd advocate anybody coming from wherever the country to come do Mozo. For some reason, I was just surprised to see him there, particularly as he, could have been at Whiteface or Loon. Did he run Loon or Ragged this year? No.
I think he was in town for a wedding, so he decided to jump in. I talked to him for a little bit after the race.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, but that was cool. And then, so Emily, for you, comparing I guess a really different, I haven't run Loon, but a really different feel, I imagine, from Loon and Whiteface. I mean, did it get 3 really similar, geographically speaking, mountain races of similar, well, I guess not quite spot on in distance, but still really different characters. I mean, how do you pit the 3 of those?
It's an interesting question. I think that Loon and Whiteface are a little, they're maybe a little bit more traditional mountain races in that you're kind of designing the course. I know at least for Whiteface, they were trying to design the course like how Worlds will be. So it's a lot more like running up like access roads. So I actually, in some ways, I find those more challenging because it was really dry and really like rocky. So your footing was super loose, and especially coming down Whiteface, like your foot was sliding. Like you're like anywhere you're putting it's going down. Whereas, at least for me, I find Mozo to be, it's difficult in a different way, but I think it's easier because the footing is more solid in an interesting way. It's like you have to think a lot more about it and what you're doing, but I think it favors someone who knows the trails and who sort of is more a hiker runner as opposed to a pure runner. Yeah. So, and also, I mean, Mozo's got this added element of like scramble and go through a cave. And so it's a little less of a pure runner's race. So I kind of used Whiteface as a training run. And then Loon, I got offered a start and was like, okay, why not? And I do think those are really helpful just to get like a good hard uphill effort in, just to kind of contrast with like going for mountain runs in the area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that sounds right. And for Whiteface, initially I thought I was going to get pretty close to shifting it to the metrics of Worlds. Only when I trimmed the distance, I got the distance close, but for some reason I had in my head early on, and maybe it changed, that Thailand was going to have quite a bit of elevation gain. And then when it ended up only having whatever it has, like, I don't know, 1,500 feet of gain or something like that over 7 miles, I was like, wow, this is going to be a really different experience. But yeah, I would probably echo that sentiment on, even when I shifted it from the sky format to the mountain format, more traditional mountain format, to apply for the mountain champs. The Mozo to me feels like a trail race on a really stout mountain, whereas the other two feel like not necessarily a trail race. It's kind of right. I mean, it feels more like the off-road mountain running that mountain championships often are. So And that way, I think I really, even though I put on Whiteface, and I think Whiteface is outstanding, I think I probably favor the Mozo course just because it has that element of like trail beauty to it or whatever.
Yeah, it's a much more interesting course. Like, not that either of those aren't interesting, but it's just more interesting in terms of footing and scenery. And I think it's a course where, as Nigel was sort of saying, and I can echo, like, knowing the terrain and knowing what you're getting into helps a lot, especially on like Maple Ridge and Subway Canyon. Although I still managed to turn the wrong way. I still haven't figured that one out, but it's better than the first year when like somehow I didn't go through the cave on the course. I'm not sure what I did, but I didn't go through the cave. I think I hiked around it. Yeah.
Oh, that is interesting. Yeah, hiking. I wonder, maybe you went, well, who knows? I don't know what you would have done there, right? Because it's not easy to necessarily go above it there, right? I mean,
I don't know, but everyone's like, oh, the cave was so cool. And I was like, what
cave? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Huh? Well, right on. You both had great races. What do you each have coming up or on deck? I mean, I guess, Emily, you're in the thick of it still with med school. Nigel, what are you doing? What's your, you work Green Mountain Club. That's right. Yeah, yep. So how about,
been demoted to the office, so I spend some time in front of the computer, but also get to travel all up and down the long trail and work with different people. So very fun time.
Cool. Well, maybe you'll just keep rising up, and then at some level, maybe they're suddenly going to be allowed more events on the, some of those beautiful trails up there. Maybe not. Maybe you're like, no, dude, that's sacrilegious. Don't say such a thing. But I know that can be tough to get some of the permitting up there and to be sure that the impact's in line with the overall mission. But
it has been one part of my job that I enjoy, though, being a representative of the trail running community in the trail management community.
And I'm seeing that more in other trail organizations as well. I don't know whether it's just that would have happened anyway, or it's because there's a certain prior generation that's kind of aging out, and it's just the nature of kind of new blood coming in, or whether they're needing fresh sources of membership, fresh sources of revenue, whatever. But it seems like there's a lot more intentional avenues into trail runners and even cyclists than there used to be with some of those organizations. Yeah. How about event wise? Either of you have anything on deck still for the rest of the year?
Well, I'm hoping to get back in time for Kilkenny, the 25 miler.
That's right. Yep.
Had a little bit of a calf issue that I'm working through right now, so we'll see what happens. But would definitely love to be on that start line. Seems like a beautiful course, and I love a good point to point.
That's like 3 weeks off. Is that like September 20th or something to that effect? Yeah. And then Emily, how about for you? Anything on deck?
Not right now that I'm aware of. I kind of might super last minute sign up for a 50K. I'm not sure which one. Just, but I'm at the hospital a lot, so it's kind of hard to balance between like, okay, do I want weekends to spend time with family and friends versus like going to do a race. So I might hop into something there at the end, but I haven't decided yet. And probably looking forward to a couple of marathon races over the course of the winter too.
For Nordic or for just running marathons?
Yeah, ski marathons. Yeah, the whole running in the winter thing is not so something I do so much. Maybe I should more. Maybe not. A little less rough, but I really like skiing a lot. Yeah.
Right on. Well, it was good to meet you both, at least here digitally again, Emily, in case we didn't overlap at Whiteface. And you guys ran really awesome, and it was cool to connect with you here a bit this evening.
Thanks very much.
Totally. And good luck with
this.
Yeah, Nigel, maybe we'll cross paths up there as well. Thanks for the work you're doing with the trails. So we'll touch base another time. All right. See ya.
Bye.
All right. Going to shift gears again toward UTMB. I am going to bring through Britta and Gabe. Good both to be on here. Zach was good to be on, but I don't know whether he's back in PA at the moment or whether he's still in Europe. He's always happens to come through in the clutch in prior episodes, but we'll see if he makes it on. We'll patch him through. Otherwise, we'll dig in a bit with Britta and Gabe. So let's see, for those who don't already know, and Britta and Gabe, this is probably the first time you're overlapping, right? I would guess.
Yeah. Yep. So hi, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Hello, you too.
So Britta Clark is a New England trail stud, if I might say so myself. You're probably not going to find her quoting herself as such, but I'm just going to put it out there. Coming to us from Goshen, Vermont. Britta's nabbed the win in most races she's run, with a few course records along the way. She race directs the Goshen Gallop. She has had or currently holds a few FKTs, including some of the epics, I would say anywhere, let alone in our region, including the Prezi Traverse and the Pemi Loop. Prezi, I think, was
taken.
Yeah. And she
Twice.
had a pretty, yeah, right. That's right at this point. Phenomenal efforts, but Pemi Loop you still have, right? I think.
As far as I know, yeah.
Yeah, I think as far as I know too. And I think that's on Gabe's list as well to get up there over the Pemi. I think you commented a couple weeks ago when I was up there, and I finally got to do the Pemi Loop. It's been on my list for a long time, but finally just did it maybe a month or so ago. And man, I don't know how much I found myself saying was quite a bit. Like, I don't know how FKTers like move through this stuff as fast as you do. So it was like, man, that's like incredible. Like it was, I don't know, like it wasn't necessarily like the elevation gain that necessarily felt like too much to me. And obviously the ridges are spectacular, but the whole crux, like between the ridges, man, that's just thick.
What kind of times are we talking about, Britta, for that? Just to give me an idea.
I honestly don't remember.
What was Ian's time? How about that?
I'll look it up.
What was your time, Ian?
It was 6:30 or 7:30, 6:30, I think.
That sounds right. If somebody's listening out there, check out the fastest known times, or maybe Britta's on it right now. Gabe, I don't know. I think that I was around 9 hours, if I remember right, something in there.
So it's hard.
And I was, I don't have much fitness at the moment, and it was a steady effort, and I was out there solo. But I remember thinking, all right, even if I were fairly fit, and even if I were going at a hard effort, I don't know, like maybe mid to upper sevens. But to get much below that, no idea, no clue, like how Britta or any of the others lay down the times through there that they do. It's pretty phenomenal. Did you find it, Britta?
I did it either, honestly. It was a good day.
Yeah. Well, you can weigh back if you're still looking. You can weigh back in on the time. But so some incredible efforts there. She was 35th woman, I think, across the line at this year's CCC. Does that sound right? And 9th or 10th, I think, for the U.S. contingent, I believe. Kevin just found it. Kevin, thanks for weighing in. 6 hours, 31 minutes, 49 seconds. Man, that's just crazy. I don't get it. But it's incredible. All right. And then on with us as well, for those who don't already know Gabe Matyiko is coming to us from Sharptown, Maryland. He's probably best known for his 4th place finish on the Bacon Trail, the Naylor Mill Trail 7K, which he finished in just over 40 minutes. And clearly, I'm having fun with Ben. You don't know Gabe, that I'm playing with him there. But it was a pretty stellar effort. Which he clearly used as his last build-up effort ahead of UTMB. Pretty similar, I think, course design between on the Bacon Trail and UTMB. I think similar media coverage as well, which is pretty overwhelming. Probably equal amounts of bacon, I would imagine, on both courses. Though I've heard, and maybe Gabe, that'll be a question, and maybe Britta, in case it was the same for CCC. I heard really like the aid stations were really just like not that good. Like people were just so I was about to say probably similar to amount of bacon, but then maybe they didn't have this quality bacon at UTMB.
No.
We'll maybe get into that in a minute. But he's also tackled less impressive events in the form of the Ure 100 and the Devil's Back. I'm remembering that, right? Devil's Back, is that the name of it?
Ure 100 and I don't know what is the Devil's Back. No, I don't think so.
Didn't you also do a really long kind of stage-ish one in Europe? Or
Well, Snowdonia. We did the race UTS 165 in Wales in September of last year. Yeah,
that was it. Yeah,
it was now a UTMB World Series event. It wasn't last year.
Okay, maybe it was Alex that went over and did the Devil's Back. But that's right. You and Snowdonia and that the heavyweight dragging you down, Trent Swanson, I think, just pulled you down on the effort on the Snowdonia. Which
yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
I would have been top 10. Trent pushed me up into 12th. It was rough.
Yeah. Well, that's what you do for friends.
That's right.
And he also directs the cult classic Duck 100K down in Delaware. So good to have you both on. So let's see. One of the things I think when I was just looking up some of the information here, like even Britta, when I was looking for your like result out there, the magnitude, I guess, of the UTMB like family of events, or like the corporate header, or kind of this monstrosity, for better or worse, that it's become. Like, I don't know how much time I lost just trying to find the results for like CCC and like get to it. I going down these rabbit holes of like, oh, I think this is like the results page, and then like actually I can't even find my way to results, and it's just like, it's just so huge. And it's like each time I feel like I'm learning about a new race that's kind of going on with UTMB, and whether it be there was a TDS, is that the longer
PTL.
one? That one. And then shorter version, which is is it the OCC? Is that a
OCC and ETC maybe?
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. So part of that is, I guess, I think maybe let's lead in with that, because UTMB, I think, it is what it is. But man, just the thought of that, Britta and Gabe, weigh in on that. I mean, because right, you get in and you get this incredible amount of energy, incredible amount of spectatorship, just this like incredible event at that level. But then on the flip side is that whole same thing, which I imagine is kind of like overwhelming and just a very far removed from probably what both of you are used to, whether it be kind of New England, kind of quiet trail scene, or Gabe with your kind of small community in Delaware. Speak to just the magnitude and how that was for both of you over there.
It was, I thought it was amazing. It was definitely tiring, and kind of had to try and find time to relax and slow down and not just be out like wandering around in the sun all day, but just to be in this place where trail running is like treated like football or baseball or whatever was pretty inspiring. And you see like your idols walking down the street eating gelato, and yeah, just so inspiring to be surrounded by that, both like before the race and in the race as well, to have so many people passing you and to pass. And yeah, it's pretty incredible scene out there, but still moments of solitude. You can get out in the mountains and find solitude out there.
Yep. And then Gabe, I'll have you weigh in, and then Zach, I'll introduce you and then bring your voice in. So just talking about like the magnitude of just UTMB, for Britta, just being energized by it. And Britta, I mean, you're fast, like, and you're good in the mountains, but now suddenly you're coming from winning a good amount of races that you've done historically to like 35th in the field. And just such the depth of field it's just pretty mind-boggling as well. And Gabe, how about for you in terms of just that energy? I know this is something you've been looking forward to for a while with UTMB. And so at some level, I imagine you're really kind of building up to a certain thing. Did it kind of live up to it, or how was it in that regard?
Yeah, my sentiments are very similar to Britta's. It was my first time being to Chamonix for UTMB, and like you said, it was a little bit of a journey for me. Well, with everybody, I guess, with COVID. But yeah, I kind of, sort of, you watch the YouTube videos and you see the crowds and the start, and you kind of you get an idea of what it's all about. But until you go and you experience the atmosphere in Chamonix, in the town, and like Britta said, the way that the people in that area embrace the event, but also the sport. We just don't have that in the States. I traveled with my family a little bit in Switzerland the week before, and we were up, in places like Grindelwald and Zermatt and places like that. And I was able to get out and do some runs and some hikes. And I happened to just get on the Eiger Trail, which was a trail that a lot of the runners that I ran with talked about, called the Eiger 100K. And it's run in Grindelwald around this mountain called the Eiger. And, they're saying, oh, that's another great little race. And I said, "Oh, how many people are we talking about?" Like, oh, it's around 1,000. And as you guys know, here in the States, 300 people, that's a big 100-mile race. And so, everything was just different. I appreciate it for what it was, probably similar to Britta, and just was kind of in awe of the energy and everything, which Zach's he's probably used to that now. But, I did hear a lot of people, especially folks that were from France and, from Europe, that kind of started grumbling and groaning about, what it used to be and kind of where it's going, what it's become. And I guess if you've got that experience and you've ran this race and you've seen it evolve, then you probably have a better platform to sort of weigh in on that. But for me, I just, for what it was pretty cool and pretty neat to experience. And, yeah, I mean, it was on a whole nother scale than what I've experienced and was used to, but I was definitely trying to just appreciate everything and take it all in. So,
Yeah. And then many of you listening, at least in the moment or after the fact, may already be aware of Zach Miller. So he may be familiar to many of you. Maybe as bearing one of the most impressive ventilators in sports. As I pointed out, I think when he joined us a year or two ago, I think at the start of the COVID epidemic, I think when we were short on ventilators, I felt like we could probably just hook up Zach to any number of individuals, and his lungs could probably power, or at least his audible ventilatory capacity could have saved quite a few people. So that's probably how you know him. I think he also was one that proved that Lancaster, PA is as good as any for a UTMB buildup, and appears to have been wearing some sort of North Face Proto and nailing a 5th place finish this go round. So Zach, glad you could join us as well. Are you still Europe or are you back home? Where are you? Mute. Rookies.
There
you go. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. No, I'm back in Colorado. I
Okay.
got back when did I get back? Monday night I got back. So
cool. So for you then, just in that UTMB experience, I mean, I guess when you were really, finding, your inspiration post-collegiately, when you were on the cruise ship, when you were getting up into the mountains, I mean, you were finding that like on your own terms, in your own solitude, maybe overlapping with some of that trail culture. But that was probably your initial like soul fusion with just running hard and high and long up in the mountains. And then, I mean, UTMB is, I guess, what would you have thought of it, I guess, at that time? And now knowing that you've had a couple fusions of races that have gone well and maybe not so well at UTMB, but I imagine it's tough to match the energy that you experience at UTMB. And so that's got to be just a huge infusion for you. And kind of, does it feel the magnitude that it is still for you, or you just kind of, it's just been this, you're kind of used to it at this point, I guess.
Yeah, the atmosphere at UTMB is very electric. I guess, I mean, it's not a surprise to me anymore. I've been there enough times that I know how it is. I know that the start line is just like very dramatic and very packed, and they'll make us do the slow clap about 20 times before we actually take off and start running. And that's just how the Euros are. They're just like very dramatic. And I know that when we run down in Saint Gervais, it's just going to be like absolutely nuts. And that when you come up through Notre Dame, like it's just going to be like Tour de France style up through the rocks with all the fans crowded in. So yeah, I'm definitely used to it, but I still very, very much enjoy it. I very much enjoy like the fans and the people, like the people in the towns, the stuff that to me occurs kind of more naturally. I'm not so into like all the sort of like done up like fancy technology stuff. I mean, I guess like this year in Notre Dame, there was the giant light tunnel that Hoka organized, which was fun, which was all right. I think some people were super into it. Like, I think one of my teammates was like, "Oh, I love that," and I was like, I got there and I was like, "Oh my!" I was like, "This is a bit much for me." But and I've talked to it. There's been mixed reactions. So like, but that's just like how I am. To each their own. Like, for me, that race is still super cool. I don't get so into like that light show type thing, but I get very into like being out in those mountains and then dipping down into those towns that are just packed with people, and then just disappearing back into the mountains again, which is great. So yeah, I've seen it many times, but I still think it's very cool.
And this seems like one, Gabe, you had mentioned somebody else, or hearing maybe a couple other individuals were out there kind of pining for the way it used to be. And I guess for all of us, often in life, I think we pine for the way maybe things once were. But it seems like UTMB, and I don't think I've ever spoken with, I think it was like Topher and somebody else. Who started UTMB? Is it Topher Gaylord?
Well, yeah, it's like, yeah, I mean, I think it's like, actually, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I mean, the Paletti family is very behind it. I guess I can't say for sure if they were behind it from day one, but I think maybe they were. And then, yeah, Topher Gaylord, who is like a Bay Area, California guy. He was, I think, involved to some degree back in the very beginning days. And he's not so, I don't think he's so much involved now. He just always goes over for the race and has a presence in the community. But yeah, I'm sure it was very different back in those days. It's probably changed leaps and bounds over the years because the race is really not that old. If you feel like it's been around forever, but it hasn't. It's not really that old of a race.
This seems like one that of any of the races where some may, like in the prior episode, one of our guests mentioned one of her bucket list races, and she's young in the sport, but found her way to Cascade Crest, and that's like on her bucket list and wants to do the Cascade Crest 100. Like, that's one was one of the, it's been around a while now as well, and it's kind of stayed the way it was, and for better or worse. But it seems like UTMB, still being a bit younger, would have been one that would be destined to arrive at the place that it is. Like, it seems like it was almost one that would be a melting pot to bring together everybody. Somebody, there's just so much, I think, potential there. And unless you intentionally curb that from the beginning, I mean, this is just where it is. So I don't know if this is one where you can necessarily pine for the way it was, because I think this just seems to be a natural evolution of just UTMB. And yeah, I don't know. I could see a mixed reaction. Light tunnel. I mean, if they're literally the fires that took you out before. I mean, that's a much different vibe from fires to a light tunnel. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, here comes the evolution. I think it's certainly. Yeah, I think it's certainly involved. I think. I don't think like change isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, we always kind of have to. We don't have to change, I guess, but a lot of times if we want to make progress, we need to change. The important thing is that we make sure we change in ways that are improvements and changing for the better, and not changing in bad ways or just changing just to change. So I think right now some of the big concerns surrounding UTMB are just sort of like the corporate nature of it, with Ironman buying in. And then them kind of really pushing the whole UTMB World Series thing, concerns surrounding that. It's fine for a race to be like big and for a race to generate income and all of that, but it's just kind of how you handle that structure. And I think for some people it's gone in a way that has like rubbed them the wrong way. And then I think there's other people that just are like, I don't see a problem. Like, I think it's great. It's awesome. So yeah, there's always, it's hard to please everyone. But yeah, there's certainly it's certainly changed a bit over the years, and it's an amazing race, like the course and the people and everything. But yeah, if you heard some chatter this year about things, it may have
been connected to kind of like that corporate structure that it has really taken over the years.
Yeah.
But Zach, is that the, it now being like the World Series of ultra running and having all of these now, UTMB races all over the globe, and, the UTMB Mont Blanc being like the sort of that, I guess it's going to intend in the future to be like the final race that caps off the season, right? And sort of down to the winner is, I mean, for folks like yourself and other runners that are trying to maybe potentially make a living off of this, I mean, that's going to create like a way for that to kind of happen, because it almost seems like they're building like a structure for, it's like either you run in the World Series or you don't now. Is that going to kind of sort of be the way it is for some people, or what?
There's definitely some concerning things with this structure. So like if you look at ultra and trail running over the years, we've kind of always been battling ourselves for like a world championship structure.
Right.
In the past, we've always had like 20 different groups trying to create a world championship, which has been the problem. Like you've had like the ITRA type route and like the world championships via like representing your country. And then you've had like the Golden Trail Series, and you've had like the Sky Running World Series, and you've had it was just like a million series. And then there was like the Ultra Trail World Tour, and now it's kind of become this UTMB thing. And I think UTMB is finally starting to get like enough of a foothold that I think they're trying to craft this like world championship type structure, which in a way is awesome, because for years I've wanted there to be like a world championship, like this is the race, because we've kind of lacked that, where all the big dogs get to come and compete, and you can kind of hash out like who's the best. Right. So that part I think is really good. The problem arises if that structure functions off of a system that means you basically have to run races within that series, and that's all.
As a professional.
Yeah, exactly. So it becomes a threat kind of to like your little mom and pop races and just like your unique races all over different countries, because all of a sudden athletes are like, well, I would love to run that race in my hometown, or I would love to run that small little race in Idaho. But like, I kind of got to go get my qualifiers for UTMB, and I got to, like, the elites are like, I got to get into the World Series. Right. So that's where it becomes a point of concern, is like, are we detracting from the cool grassroots nature of trail running by creating this monster like World Series, because there's lots of races I like to run. I don't want to only run UTMB races. Like, I don't want my schedule to be just by UTMB races. But I love UTMB, or I really like UTMB, and it's fun to be at the race that's like super competitive. But I want to be able to run other stuff as well, and not feel like I have to structure a season after that model. So I think those are the concerns. There's good things, and then there's like concerning things, and it's trying to like navigate that. I guess it is sort of the question or the issue or the problem. So at least that's like how I see it.
All right, so let's go on a. I think for each of you, you're coming into UTMB. Is it still so for Britta doing CCC? Do I still even say UTMB, or should I just say CCC? What happens with the family of races there?
I think you'd call it CCC.
Yeah.
Just skip the
by
UTMB. It's CCC by UTMB.
Yeah. Something like that. But
All
CCC.
All right. So for each of you coming in, maybe in slightly different places. I think Britta, this was your second 100K, and I think you've only done a couple 50 milers, I think, before this, right? I mean, you've typically been a little bit shorter and doing some really incredible efforts, but not necessarily going long. So for you coming in to CCC, let alone in the depth of field that you're coming into, I mean, that must have been a pretty cool experience. You're not coming in with the background or the number of finishes over that distance. So everything was kind of novel and high energy and competitive, and it must have been pretty wild. And so how'd it go in terms of just like that distance, and how'd you feel and how'd it go?
It was a wonderful day. I was just like, I think the best part about it was that I had like 12 friends from high school actually fly over, and they were there all on the course.
Wow,
cheering
like
me on.
cheering you on, not necessarily racing. I was like, wow, you just
No,
kind of
no, no.
dominated the field with your
No,
social
just me
circle.
racing.
Uh-huh.
So no matter how I did, I think just having that energy there really made the day for me. I honestly felt a little flat the whole day. Felt like I could go forever and was well trained for the distance, but didn't totally have that like pep that I wanted to, especially on the downhills. They totally wrecked me more than I expected. I think it's hard in the east. I did a lot of vert in the whites, but as you know, the downhills in the whites are super non-runnable. So it didn't end up doing like, 3 to 4 to 5 mile stretches of faster downhill running. So by the end of the race, I was suffering there, but I was still pretty happy to be out there. I really like the 100K distance. You're not going through the night. You're not sleep deprived. But you can really go through some lows and highs and kind of experience the whole range of emotions through the day. So it was not my best day, but I feel like I learned a lot, and it was cool to, like, in races with fewer competitors, I feel like you can't quite get a sense of what your strengths and weaknesses are in the same way. You're like, okay, well, someone, passed me on a downhill, but maybe they're just really good at downhills, or I'm passing one or two people on the uphills, but like, does that mean that that's my strength? But when you're out there and you see that, oh, like I'm passing 10 people on every uphill and getting passed by 10 on every downhill, you can really see like, okay, that's where I'm gaining time. And in the aid stations too, that was fun to try and really, really nail those.
Even though it felt kind of flat, did you go in with a certain target in terms of, I mean, can you even put because it's such I guess a big and new thing, could you even go in with a goal of like, I want to be, I don't know, this place or this time or whatever? You're like, no, I'm just kind of going in and gonna have a good race, and I have no real idea from there.
A little bit of both. I try to set some like super loose targets. I was like somewhere between 14 and 16 hours, and I was exactly right under 15.
Do you think if you would have set the goal of like, I'm going to be between 11 and 13 hours, you would have been like right on 12? In which case, like, damn it, like why didn't I do that?
A little bit. I'm like excited to go back because I feel like I did just need like one time out there to see what the scene is and like know that I can do it and like can keep up with people, at least on the uphills in this case, and just sort of like understand the scene and the course and know what to train for a little bit better, and then like go out with a little bit more of a, okay, I know I can run this time on this section or whatnot. But yeah, I wanted to run between 7 and 7.5 to Champex, which was the halfway point. And then the goal was to sort of work my way up from there, but that sort of just stayed flat throughout, and had a little bit of trouble like putting down food in the later hours, which maybe hurt a bit there.
All right, so maybe that's the segue in terms of putting down food, and you can each weigh in with your experience. Just because a couple individuals who were out there just commented on the aid stations, they were not like you'd expect this World Series event where everything's completely dialed in and like it was on point and like amazing offerings and anything you could ask for. And instead it was like those aid stations actually, they kind of sucked. I mean, did they need more? I don't know. How was it in terms of, did it feel in that regard in terms of the professional, I think, production and on point to everything you'd kind of expect out of such a World Series event for each of your performances, or each of your experiences, rather? Gabe, weigh in.
I I didn't really there again with everybody you talk to on the trail, and everybody had an opinion about, this, that, the other thing. Being a race director, even though it's a small race, but I'm involved with a bunch of other local races we put on. When you do that, you can appreciate a little bit more how hard it is to put on a race and nail every aspect. I wasn't complaining or thinking in my head that, this is, this stuff isn't really the best or the highest caliber or whatnot. There was a little bit of variety, but if there was a criticism, it would be that just the variety between aid stations was really lacking. I mean, and Zach probably knows exactly everything, although you probably carry everything you need with you, or you have people that, that bring nutrition for you, and it's all probably very well thought out. For me, I'm not that, I'm not there. So on my level, I'm really depending on what they have. It definitely got old towards the end of the race because everything was the same. The only difference they had was they had these little, fruit squeezy packs, like applesauce type stuff. And that was, I would say every fourth aid station they had those, and I really look forward to them. But other than that, it was pretty flat on the variety of things that they had. And so towards the end of the race, I was wishing for some different food, but that's not something that, I really hold against UTMB. I mean, just traveling around that region and the roads and the infrastructure and how hard it must be just to get things. I mean, like Britta said, they have 6 races a week there. I mean, the courses are different. The timing is different. I don't know how they do it. It's unbelievable. It's insane. So to have what they had, and the level of support that they were able to provide, I thought it was impressive. But if there was one thing to complain about, I mean, I think that the variety of the aid stations from a food standpoint could have been better, but
Yeah. And that's, all the things I'm spending your time, and you guys are taking your times out of your nights, is like, why are we here talking about freaking aid station food? Right. Complete ridiculous. But in my head, I'm like, I just hold it on this platform of like, everything is like the pinnacle and like dialed in. And then I just hear this. And I'm like, wait, what do you, that can't be. Zach, years ago, a friend, Jenny Jurek, in one of her write-up from UTMB, and maybe you're out the front, you don't see it. Maybe this is more of a question for Gabe, but in one of her takeaway quotes was, in her UTMB experience, she didn't remember seeing. She was blown away by the amount of cigarettes and penises she saw on course. Comments.
We talked about this before. Yeah, you brought this up.
I did. Yeah, that's still a pretty cool thing. So, Zach, do you feel like there was a good amount of penis from the front end, or like Gabe, do you think that you were kind of drowning in smoke on the back end?
Well, I peed on live TV, so like,
well done.
But I was in sport mode, so like, there wasn't much to see, but because I was running, but
sport mode, I like that. I'm going to use that. I was on sport mode.
Yeah, there's no blood flow down there. It's all in my legs. But yeah. Well, no, we were running. Tom Evans and I, we left Champagne Locker. We were running down the gravel road, and those cameras are everywhere. A guy was biking in front of us, but they're like all different too. Like some are drones, some are like tiny cameras, some are like helicopters. So like, it's not like you're always looking for the same thing. And this guy was like biking with a little camera, and I was like, he was there, so I was like, and I had to go to the bathroom, and Tom and I, we both just pee while we run, so we don't stop. So like, I was like, are you live? And he said, yeah. And he was like on one side of us. So I like went over to his side, like kind of off the road, like into the grass where I could still run, but I felt like I was maybe out of his camera. And I like started to go, and then like, or I was about to, and then next thing I know, he like pulls over to the other side and maybe goes like a little farther in front of us. So like his camera angle probably widened, and next thing I know, his like camera spun around like facing straight at us, and I'm like already doing my thing, and I'm like, and I just go to Tom, I'm like, well, the whole world just saw that. So but it was fine. It was really funny because actually like one of the buff runners, like he had it. He showed it to me after the race because he had it like on his phone and he showed it to me. It was pretty funny. But yeah, so I mean there was at least one out there. I don't know. I can't speak for everyone else. And then what was the other thing? Oh, cigarettes. I didn't see any cigarettes, but the Europeans, they still smoke. It's surprising.
My kids couldn't believe it. They're like, oh, everywhere we went, like, oh, it's horrible. It smells. Oh.
Yeah, like every time I go to Europe, I'm like, huh? Like, we figured out in like 1995 that this was killing us, like, and we stopped in America, like, for the most part. I was like, oh, did the Europeans not get the memo? Like,
so maybe the next round, the North Face is going to have created some pretty awesome catheter integration into maybe their running short, and they're just going to call it the Zach Miller Sport Mode short. I think.
Yeah, maybe. Although I don't know if I'd use it though. It sounds a little uncomfortable.
Does a little bit. So, but this one, Britta referenced this being just a big, like, longer effort, magnitude of event. Zach, you've been here before, but knowing how the past few years have been for you, coming off of the injury and then the surgery, and that being on the heels of having a UTMB that maybe could have been but didn't end up being. I mean, I can only imagine the cathartic effect of this or whatever. It must have just felt awesome to come back, to have your body perform for you, and to just have it go well. I mean, that's got to feel incredible for you at the moment.
Yeah, it felt really good. I mean, largely just that I finally felt like I put together a solid race. Not the perfect race. There's still room for improvement in there. My last 10 miles, I would really like to improve that last section, but yeah, it was just overall, it was just really solid. Like, we took off really fast. And like, surprisingly, I held, like, my consistency throughout was probably like some of the best it's been in any of them, even with that hot opening pace. So yeah, I mean, my body really held up quite well pretty much all the way to Valersine. And then I struggled a bit the last like 10 miles, and still moved, like, held my position. But yeah, just wasn't able to run as fast as I would have liked. So yeah, I was pleased.
And I mean, I guess as an athlete who is a sponsored athlete, who is able to make it somewhat of a livelihood in the past few years, are you able to feel mentally, spiritually okay and kind of being, hey, this is where I'm at, sponsors supporting me through the injuries, through the surgery or whatever, at some level, without a big performance like this, you kind of start questioning things, and kind of the doubt creeps in, or am I worth it? Or is this going to come back? And then, or, I don't know how that would go, because I've never really been in those shoes.
Oh, yeah, pretty much all those things. Like, yeah, it's pretty crummy, like, being injured, especially when you have a contract, like, because you just feel bad at your job. Mm-hmm. You're just like, they're paying me and I can't even really do my job. So, like, it's like worse. I think it's worse than if you're like unsponsored. Like, it's injuries are crummy no matter what, sponsored, unsponsored, whatever your level of support. It just stinks. But when someone is actually paying you to do it and you can't do it, like, that is just like, that's really awful. Because then, like, it's not only like, oh, I can't run, like, I'm bummed about this important part of my life. It's also like, oh, I also can't really do my job, but somebody's still going to pay me each, like, like, the paycheck's still going to come around, but I don't feel like I'm deserving of it, you know? So that's like, yeah, that was a hard spot to be, especially because I'm a guy that, like, I've never really wanted to be just sitting on a contract just because of past accomplishments. Like, I've never wanted to be like, like, just milking a contract way longer than it should be. Like that, like, oh, you like popped some good races when you were 25 and now you're like, many years later and you're still just kind of like, coasting off of it. I'm more of the mindset that I'm like, I hope that if I get to someday where I'm not like deserving of that contract anymore, that I'll just kind of like, then I'll kind of like do the Brian Sell and just like bow out and let somebody else, like some other young kid come in, So not that Brian Sell wasn't good anymore. I think Brian Sell was more just like, I want to do other stuff, and I'm not going to, like, I could milk this Olympian marathoner thing for a while, but I feel like he was just kind of like, no, I'm not going to do that, which I always respected. So
is he Lancaster County area
no,
as well?
No, he is now.
Is he not? Is that not where he's from?
No, he's I think he might be Western PA. I forget. He's Pennsylvania somewhere, I think. Went to Messiah College for a year and then went to St. Mary's, which is like more Western PA. But he married a girl, I think, from the Lancaster area, so he lives down in like Lancaster now. So I actually every so often run with him when I go home.
Gabe, Britta, do you know who Brian Sell is? That's probably a name that's maybe not necessarily on your radars.
No,
I don't think I know the name.
He was Olympic marathoner, kind of like him and Des Linden were kind of like the stronghold names in that Brooks project, the Brooks Hanson's team. They were the two that really made it out of that program. Was Des and Brian. They both made Olympic teams.
So, a very grounded individual, kind of like a working class mentality, and not necessarily
he had like
just like D1 credential or whatever.
He worked at like Home Depot or something when he was like going to the Olympics. It was pretty
That's
It was pretty funny. So yeah,
but that's good. So from where that's been the past 3 years, that it's suddenly, wow, like I just had a great job performance. Like this can't happen again. I can do this.
Yeah, this year has been like very good for my soul.
Mm-hmm.
Like I went to Andorra and had a good race and was like, okay. I was like, I just earned my keep back. And then I was able to go here and do it again. So now I'm like, okay, this has been a good year. Two races, but two big ones. So I'm like, this has been a good year. Anything after this is a cherry on top. So it's a good feeling. I'm like, I'm worth something again. I mean, I was worth something, but like, it's just, you get very critical of yourself and,
for what it's worth, Zach, from being in a different perspective and being in the crowd and running with the mid pack, or I don't even actually, to your point, Ian, or Britta's point, I still don't even know what my result was either, because I tried to figure it out. My wife was looking at it and we couldn't figure it out. There's like a ranking, and then there's like this other ranking that doesn't match up. And then you look at where you come in line with all of the other runners, and there's like numbers that are skipped. So it's like 867, 890. It's like you have no clue. But anyway, wherever I was and wherever I was running, people that spoke English, you try to, strike up conversation, break up the boredom, do whatever. And even in the beginning, there were some people that, asked me who I was rooting for, and they just assumed I was rooting for the American runners. And, and then they assumed that I would think that they would be, rooting for the runners of their nationality or whatnot. But there were more than once, Zach, there were people that said that, since I was American, they thought that it was appropriate to let me know that they really were rooting for Zach Miller, because they're like, this guy, has put a lot of time in, like, they knew about, the layoff and the injury, and they just liked your go for broke, sort of attitude about putting it all on the line. And so like, I think within the UTMB, and you probably know this, but like, I think you've kind of got a real story that's attached to that race, and a lot of the Europeans and a lot of the runners there, they're definitely, we're rooting for you and appreciate, your style. Not that they don't appreciate, what Jim's doing and things like that. But, I think Jim's path is a little different, and obviously everyone's different in their running style, but just, I think from what I heard and the feedback that I got was just that, your dedication to that race and to that place, they really identified with, and the way that you're always in the mix there and coming back and overcoming adversity. I mean, it was probably about 5 or 6 times from people from different nationalities that repeated that same thing that I heard. So I just was like, you know what, I'm going to be on this podcast. So Zach, no, I might as well let them know that, So it was good to hear.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Thanks. Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate Sorry, I'm gonna pull my headphones out for a sec. I need to charge a little bit. But yeah, thank you. That's awesome. I always feel like very welcome in Chamonix. The people there are great. So yeah, what you're expressing is like essentially what I feel there as well. So, but
Right.
it's good. It's good to hear it.
And how about Britta for you? Any you mentioned passing some of your heroes, so to speak. That may not be the word that you used, like on the streets getting coffee or whatever. Who did you have fun seeing out there? And do you have any people that you're like, wow, like he or she or whatever would have been the person that I'm rooting for, and it was just awesome to kind of rub up against them there?
I think not American, unfortunately, but I really like Marion Hogan. She got second. She seems pretty rad. Been following Abby Hall for a while and stood next to her in line. That was cool. I think in the Killian Jim debate that was being waged prior to the race, I think I was quoted as being on Team Jim, but now in retrospect, I'm like, I was totally on Team Killian the whole time. And just recently found out that he had COVID when he did that, so that's pretty incredible.
Which is your Pemi loop is mind-boggling, but him doing that on COVID is also equally mind-boggling.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel, Zach? The fact that Killian just woke up on you while also maybe having COVID and a partial lung. How does that make you feel?
Well, I actually have it right now.
Touché. Well, there it is.
So it was like bound to happen. I just tested today, and I have it. So yeah, I texted my girlfriend, and she was like, "Does this mean?" She was like, "Does this mean Killian beat COVID, Zach?" And I was like, "Well, maybe it means COVID Killian beat COVID, Zach." And she was like, "Oh, that's right." She's like, "That sneaky guy did have COVID." But I felt good. I felt good. I felt good race day. I didn't. I didn't have really any reason to test myself until this week. So yeah, I didn't go into the race thinking I had COVID. He went into the race knowing he had tested positive. I was feeling crummy afterwards, and then that's why then tested myself. But there were actually several runners in that race with COVID.
Maybe it's a COVID strain modified or evolved in their system. So if you actually got, Killian's strain of COVID that had already evolved into some sort of other mutant strain in his system, dude, you just got this incredible variant, the Killian variant, that's now running through your veins.
Yeah. I don't know. If I got, there's a note, could have got it from him. I don't know if I got it from him. I don't really blame anyone there. That whole race week was just I haven't had COVID since the pandemic started, at least not that I know of. Every time I've tested, I've been negative. So it was sort of a matter of time. And if any time it was going to happen, it was going to be coming out of this event. There's just like too many people and too much close contact. So even as careful as I tried to be, so yeah, but yeah, it's it is Killian who can always do those things like win Hard Rock with one arm and win UTMB with COVID, and so yeah, he makes us laugh.
So this was I was wondering the same thing. Even though I've already seen the 23 lineup, but this is a question that Jennifer Robinson dropped into the comments. What shoe was Zach wearing? What was the proto on your feet, brah?
It's a new North Face proto. A lot of us were wearing it. It's the Pro. I'm trying to think of the full name of it, but basically it's like short name would just be the Pro. I don't remember when it's coming out. But yeah, I've really been liking it. I've actually haven't been testing it that long. Tested it some in training before UTMB, and then UTMB was like the first really, really big test for it. But yeah, basically it's just like another just like a carbon plated shoe with a really nice foam. So it's really bouncy. Like energy return is like super nice. And so far seems to hold up quite well because I ran all of UTMB in it, and I've done a few shuffles since UTMB. And I've been wearing it, and it feels like fine. Like it doesn't feel like I ran UTMB in it. It just feels like I just started using it basically. So yeah, basically just like a high cushion, high stack, really good energy return, carbon plated trail shoe.
And it matched your shorts really nicely.
Did it?
I think so. I think it had pretty similar color pattern.
No, that would have been what I wore on the podium. That would have matched my shorts really nicely. But no,
dude,
I got to go back to white.
I got to go back to the finish shot. I'm pretty sure it looked like it was it, and kind of matchy. And I thought it looked pretty.
Well, it was pretty dirty. It was pretty dirty by the end, so it might have looked a little more matchy. It might have looked like it was streaked with black stripes, like my shorts.
Yeah.
Because it was pretty. It was pretty dirty.
And Britta and Gabe, what kind of gear? What'd you select for the efforts out there? What worked?
This was contentious. Also, I eventually went with the Hoka Tecton.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure I would do it again. I think most women I've talked to haven't loved it. It feels a little big, just like roomier than I would like, sliding around a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Even though most of the guys I've talked to really love it, but no real complaints.
They made that vamp and that lace lines come together so close, and because it goes so far down, I think you can't really crank it down. So if you do get a slenderer foot, it's like you just can't pull it in.
Yeah, exactly. I was like just cranking them before the race, trying to get everything to feel tight in there, and but they held up great. Their feet felt fine throughout the race, so that's the big thing.
Gabe, what'd you go with?
I'm a big fan of Ultra Olympus. I've got a lot of luck with them. The problem I had is that I've got 3 pairs that I cycle through, and they all got 1 or 2 100-mile races on them,
mm-hmm.
plus some training. So I kind of knew that they might not be the best fit or last me the whole race. So when I got to Chamonix, I bought a pair of Hoka Mafate 4 speeds to have as my backup pair in case they just weren't feeling good. And when I got to Courmayeur, I knew I needed to get out of them and get into the Hokas. And so anyway, unfortunately, I wasn't able to. I didn't make that decision until I left Courmayeur, so I had to wait till to Complex to switch back into them. So that was rough, and my stomach was hurting. So I had I had a couple of descents with some beat up toes and some rough stomachs until I could get into those Hokas. And then after that, it felt really great. So, and then the downhill into town was awesome. So,
yeah.
Some of those aid stations are big decision points out there. Like you roll into like Contamine, and whatever you go with leaving there, you're stuck with long time. And same with Courmayeur. Whatever you go with there, you're also stuck with for a long time because you don't see your like. I mean, for me, like Contamine to Courmayeur is like a 5-6 hour stretch, and then it's the same for Courmayeur to Champex-Lac, and then for other folks, for folks going at a slower pace, than that, it's even longer. So it's longer, I feel like in a lot of our American ultras, it's not like that. It's not that like you have aid stations, but you don't have crew. So it's like I made one of those decisions too at Lake Contamine and rolled the dice a bit, and it worked out. But I was like, oh, do I do this now or do I gamble?
Yeah, my first European race, Zach, was Snowdonia, the 165 last year, and Yeah, one drop bag, no pacers, like no crew, like that's it. And the drop bag was at mile 50, and like, the cutoff was whatever it was, 48 hours. So I was looking for somebody who's pretty, average Joe. I was looking at like a 40-hour effort, and I'm like, wow, I got one shot and 20 hours to figure out what I need for the next 20 hours. And it was like, I need to really figure this out. So I can see where, running this race a bunch of times, I mean, your IQ just goes up leaps and bounds. So, if I was to do this again, there's so many different things that I would do.
Eventually, where like every fountain is on course.
Oh, those fountains are unbelievable. I love those things. Yeah.
Yeah. But
and Switzerland has so many more of them. As soon as you get into Switzerland, there's the frequency just jumps up. So.
Yeah. And they're really handy because if you know where the fountains are, it's like very advantageous. Like, it's like Katie Scheid, like she probably has like all of them memorized, and she told me like in like I think it was in like La Folie, she had her bottle out and ready to go because like she knew like right where the fountain was. Except then she said to the fountain, and she turned with her bottle and it was like trickling. She was like, oh, this is gonna take forever. But yeah, so
I'll plug it in. Comment from Trent. How about the cows on the trail? In case that's a there.
Zach, have you ever ran into that? Because I was with a group of runners. We got stuck behind cows for 20 minutes.
Oh, 20 minutes? No, I've never really been stuck. It's just they like usually in that like at the start of that the approach to Col de Seine going into Italy, they're usually down there. And no, it's usually just kind of like being in like Colorado in the open space trails, or like or maybe in Lancaster somewhere, you just like you just yell at them. And
we called a herd of cows, and they all rushed from uphill and downhill to the trail because they were trying to go somewhere, and there was runners in front, runners behind. There was cows all mixed in all around us, and there was a couple of guys that were trying to go around them. And, the cows would be just running all over the place. And a couple of them started fighting in the trail, and they've all got horns, and it was insanity. And they're knocking rocks down from up high, and they're rolling onto the trail. And we tried to go up higher and skirt around them, but then, it was ridiculous. I got a video of it, and just, they have those signs, be careful of the herd. And I saw a couple of those signs, and then we got stuck in a herd of cows. Like we literally got stuck in a herd of cows.
I didn't really remember those signs from previous races, but they definitely had cow signs this year. Because we'd be running, like me and Tom, and I'd be like, "What's that sign say?" And he'd be like, "It's for the cows."
It's for the cows. Yeah.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever gotten like kicked by? That was my concern. I had to sort of squeeze by one of them on a bridge, and it's like coming up right behind it.
I don't know if anyone's ever been kicked, but I imagine you could be kicked.
It was we were jammed in between them. I've got a video. There's like 5 cows behind me, 3 guys, 6 cows in front of them, a couple dudes, cows in front of them. It was out of control. They were everywhere. So
yeah, it's never been that bad for me, but I know they're out there, and sometimes we have to shoo them away here and there. But like, I guess that's another reason to run with the poles.
Oh yeah,
they get really close. You can just whack them.
That's what you lack, Britta. Another element of your training, you mentioned that you don't have the long descents, but you're missing the cows too. Like it's not like you often run into a herd of cows right there in the Pemi Loop, or the whites there or whatever. It's just not there.
That's true. Plenty of cows by the side of the road in Vermont though, so you get the visual experience at least.
But the question is, do they have as nice a udders? Like oh my gosh. So Jonathan Lance from Lancaster, he ran TDS, and Elam King, he was out there crewing him. He and my girlfriend were out there crewing him, and those guys both grew up Amish. And I get this text from my girlfriend that's like, she's like, Elam's really funny. He stopped in the middle of a highway to take pictures of a cow with really nice udders. And then we teased him about it, like throughout the trip thing, because he was like, and he was very enthusiastic about it. He was like, oh yeah, he's like they were some nice udders. He's like I want to see how they milk these cows. These are some really healthy looking cows. So, but those guys grow up on dairy farms and stuff, so they appreciate that sort of thing.
Yeah. Anything else that would be fun to delve into? I want to respect all your times here tonight as well. But anything that would be fun to talk about? Any other stories that came out of UTMB or questions for one another, or anybody that might still be listening out there live? Feel free to drop any questions in there. But anything that you guys have that would be fun to dig into?
I don't think I have anything too much.
Yeah, that's all right. No pressure. It's fun just chatting. I want to give the audience out there a moment if there was anything else that anybody wanted to drop in. What else you got? What else you got coming up? Anything that's on the horizon for the three of you still for the rest of the year at least?
Well, I'm going to try and recover from COVID. No, it hasn't been that bad. I was pretty miserable yesterday, but then today I'm much better. So I think it shouldn't be too bad. I'm gonna see how I recover from the race and all, and then nothing set in stone. Conestoga Trail Run, I always like to run that, but it's coming up in 2.5 weeks, so I'm not sure if I'm gonna jump on the line or not.
I don't think that's part of the UTMB World Series, buddy. I'm not sure whether you can run that.
I don't know if I'm allowed to go.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, maybe Ultra Trail Cape Town at the end of the year. But I'm gonna hold it. I'm holding it in check. I'm gonna see how I'm feeling. So,
is there any North Face events that they're putting on, any kind of marquee ones that you'd be excited about or they'd want you at?
Well, I was supposed to be at the Rut this weekend. Not racing, but I was going to go up there. But now with my positive test here, I may just stay here. I mean, I won't be, if I go up there, I will be the biggest introvert and just hide in the bushes. But yeah, there's a good chance I won't even go up now. Because I can't really do anything.
Is North Face sponsoring the Rut? Are they?
Yeah, the North Face is sponsoring the Rut.
Okay.
So we have some athletes up there competing this weekend, so that'll be a big event for us. Yeah. So other than that, no, I think I'm doing a team athlete get together in California or something. And then I'm running a running camp down. I'm supposed to help run a running camp down in North Carolina.
Is that also with Magee? Is another one with Magee?
Yeah, me and Magee, and the guys from Tanoa Adventures doing a camp down there. So that should be sweet. I think we still got plenty of space if anyone wants to sign up. Mm-hmm. Should be a good time in October. East Coast is great that time of year.
What's the name of the camp again?
Well, it's like the North Carolina High Country Trail Camp or something.
Okay.
It's Tanoa Adventures is the group that puts it on. If you go to my Instagram page and go to my profile, there's a link to it right there in my profile if people want to check it out.
Cool. Gabe and Britta, anything that's slated for the remainder of the year here?
Excited to bike and Nordic ski a little bit more.
Do you shift into Nordic in the winter as well?
Not really. Still try and keep up pretty good running base, but try and get a bunch of Nordic in, especially on the weekends. And write my dissertation and go to all my friends' weddings. It's kind of the fall plan.
Good time of life.
Oh yeah.
And if you go back to UTMB or it left a good taste, would it be CCC again, or would it be one of the other races?
Ooh, that's a good question. CCC or UTMB for sure. I felt like I could have gone a few more miles after CCC, maybe not 40, but it'd be fun to, even just for the sort of type A satisfaction of going all the way around. That'd be a blast, but it would also be fun to take some time off my CCC effort. So we'll see. I got to collect my running stones or whatever from various places. So I don't know. Don't know how to do that yet.
That whole process is still confusing to me too. I think I added a race or two into their qualifying, and I was just like, this doesn't even, like, I think I logged on and submitted like a name, and they were like, great, like you're now a UTMB qualifier. And I'm like, well, like that all it takes? Like I just hit enter on entering the name and like the date or whatever. Like that's all it takes. Okay. It seems, the whole thing still seems
very, very mysterious.
Very mysterious.
A big work in progress. I think about you and everyone else is a little confused right now. So
I mentioned before you got on, I think Zach trying to find, I think Britta's result before we got on too. I don't know how many like rabbit hole web pages I went on, literally just trying to find where Britta actually like finished in CCC. And I was like, I think I'm on the results page. And they're like, but I don't know where the results are in this page. I'm pretty sure it says,
I don't know if I've ever even looked up results for UTMB. Like I
don't recommend it.
I don't even know where to tell you to go other than you would think it would be on the website somewhere, but I wouldn't say it's a guarantee. So
yeah,
it's buried with the running stones. They're all hidden.
Yeah, that's right.
Gabe, you got anything on deck the rest of the season?
I really don't. Our running club's putting on a couple of races in the fall, so that takes a lot of time, energy, and it's really enjoyable to put on. So we have got a race at the end of September called the Pemberton 24, which is a 24-hour sort of 5K trail sort of loop. Every hour we repeat it, and it's a points-based individual and team event. So we're looking forward to putting that on, and then there's a few other races in the fall that we put on. But I devoted a lot of time this summer to training and races to get ready for UTMB. I did Old Dominion and then URay, and then so it was like in the UTMB it was one a month, and so I got a lot of work that I need to get to and get caught up, and so yeah, I think from now to the end of the year it's going to be just playing catch up and working on putting on some of these local races that we put on, and next year I don't know, we'll see, get something on the books just to stay active and stay motivated to keep running.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys all taking the time. And Britta, Marianne, I was hoping Marianne could have joined us as well. She's still over there. I think she comes back tomorrow. I think I remember her saying she did want to join us, but I think it would have been like 1 a.m. or whatever in terms of the time. But I'll have her on another dedicated segment. I mean, she just had a phenomenal year. So it would have been great to talk to her as well, but it'll be a follow-up. So I agree. She's pretty awesome.
Thanks for having us on.
Totally. Yeah. And for all of you guys just getting back tired, especially Zach, you're feeling a little bit, at least a little bit under the weather. If you want to just like lick a stamp and send it my way for the Killian strain, I don't think that I've had it yet. I might as well just go with the Killian strain if I'm going to have one. And then
I think it turns you into a superior human.
It could, right? I don't know. And now it's running through your veins with a combination of anything that's touched the blood of Killian followed by yours. Like, I'm willing to take that risk personally. So if you want to bottle some of that and get it up on your site for, a reasonable price, I may consider it.
Yeah, I think if you get it, it turns you into Jim Lee and Walnut. Did anyone else see that on? So I was introduced to that new "Your Boy Scott Jerk" page with all the memes because there was a pretty funny one of me on there. And
what is it? I don't think I've seen that. What is that?
If you haven't seen it, you need to go look at it. So they had a meme where it said, "Guys, I compiled all the votes of the UTM, all your votes for UTMB, and this year's winner will be." And it said, it was like Jim Lee and Walnut, and they photoshopped together combinations of like Jim and Killian, and it. Oh, when I cannot stop laughing when I look at it. It's like Killian's eyes and like Jim's hair, and it is the weirdest. Like,
ugliest looking thing you've ever seen. So those two better never ever reproduce, because it will be
Hideous.
the speed of the child will not be worth the ugliness of the
Offspring.
the person.
Huh. Well, I didn't find it in a quick search. When we get off, send it to me in an email reply.
It's I can send it to you. It's the Ya Boys. I might have said the wrong thing. It's the it's they have the page that's like Ya Boy Scott Jurek. Well, there's a new one now called Ya Boy How Corner, and it's on
Ya Boy, like YABOY, Ya Boy.
Ya Boy, yeah, like just YABOY How Corner. It's on Instagram, and the Gilliam Walnut. It's like,
yeah, I don't know. Send it to me. I'm still not finding it.
I'll send it to you. It's
okay.
I can't stop laughing every time I look at it.
Huh. That's good.
Next year, I'm gonna show up to UTMB with that picture and ask them both to autograph it for me.
All right. Well, to all of you, thanks for taking up a bit of your time here tonight. It was cool to hear about your experiences and to just kind of chat on it relatively informally. So really appreciate it. Until the next round, again, thanks again. And great job out there.
All right. Thanks, Ian.
Yeah, all right. Talk later.
Bye.
All right. So for all those who tuned in for another round of Trails Collective Live, I really appreciate you tuning in. For any of you who dropped comments or questions, I really appreciate it. For any of you, take the next step and, I don't know, share it in your own networks. Vinny, thanks for weighing on that comment with the link there. I will click on it and check it out. If anybody are still on, Vinny Capador just dropped the link into the comments thread. So yeah, thanks for being on. For those who support the Trails Collective, thank you. For those who take that next step and become Patreon supporters, we very much appreciate that show of support. I don't know, just really appreciate it. So I'm not sure what's going to come next week. It'll be going into Virgil Crest Ultras week for myself, so I'm not sure what kind of time will be on hand. But if we can get something off, that will be the plan. If any of you out there have any events going on or things you want us to check out or plug, let us know. If any of you out there, like Trent, if you want to host a TC Live episode, let me know too. It would be great to pull in just more voices and people engaging from the larger Trails Collective. So let me know. All right. I am going to try to catch my daughters before bed here and hit it. So until then, I'll see you next round. See ya.